Just remember that as we prepare ourselves in consciousness to be that place where God shines through, then we make an opening for its presence to be felt in whatever conflict is existing right now. But it's the work that we do in consciousness that is the most important thing. The work that internal work that we do to remember that truth, to remember that presence of the divine is always within us, and it has only us to operate through. And so that is, our high and holy work that we are here to do, to be the place where God shows up, and to be that in any situation. And sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes it's challenging to see the presence of the divine. Because we get lost in what's happening. We get lost in what has happened before, and we get lost in worrying about what's going to happen next. And that's the gist of my talk today, is how can we stay in the eternal now, in the present moment? Because all problems either exist in the past or in the future. Because in the very present moment, when we are connecting deeply with consciousness, there is nothing there but joy. Judy talked about this in her meditation this morning, about being that presence of joy and bringing that presence of joy into the world around us. And just as David sang, when we are that place where God is shining through, we're bringing that presence of joy with us. And joy can look like a lot of things. Joy doesn't have to be happy, laughing people. Joy can be an intense feeling that just overwhelms us. An intense feeling that sometimes even is so powerful it brings us to our knees in the awe of it, in the wonder of it. So as I've been preparing this month for my talks, we're talking about the idea of life and eternality, how it is a continuous thing that, we think of our life as being this as Joel Goldsmith calls it, a parenthesis in eternity. It's a time in eternity that is encapsulated by these parentheses that hold our lifespan in this one little moment. But as eternal beings, as beings that are souls embodying a physical form, our life is eternal and everlasting, and it never ends. And so our task is not to worry about what has happened before or to worry about what's going to happen in the future, but to stay in the present moment. All of the great spiritual traditions practice this idea of being in the present moment. In Buddhism, they talk about it as walking the razor's edge. We're walking the razor's edge. We want to stay on that thin line that is this very present moment. Because if we drift off on either side, that's where problems come. And in the Buddhist tradition, that's where the suffering comes. They would say that that's where suffering is. It exists outside of the present moment. But the present moment is on a razor's edge, that very super thin line that we are walking. The great Sufi mystic Rumi put it this way: past and future veil God from our sight. Burn up both of them with fire. The past and the future veil God from our sight. If we're dwelling in the past, there's problems there. In the past, we have times when we have not been able to forgive. In the past, we have anger. In the past, we have love, but sometimes we take that love and try to bring it into the future, but it stayed there in the past. It needs to be part of the past. When we're working in the past, we are not fully present in the moment. I've been reading this book by Eckhart Tolle. You may have heard of it, The Power of Now. He wrote it in 1997. And he says that in the past, we have guilt, regret, resentment, sadness, and bitterness. Most of the time when we think about the past, we don't think about the good stuff. We think about the stuff that made us angry, the stuff that hurt us, the stuff that was bothering us, the stuff that we want to change but we can't change because it happened in the past. And if we're dwelling in the future, we have unease, anxiety, tension, stress, and worry because we're trying to figure it all out and make it happen the way we want it to happen. This is where all problems come from. All problems arise when we do not stay in the present moment, in that eternal now, that perfect moment in time that we're in right now. In his book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle suggests that we do this. He says, I want you to right now, let me get this right, to listen to the voice in your head. And right now, just ask yourself, is there anything missing right now? Not anything missing that I need tomorrow, or not anything missing that I should have had yesterday, but is there anything missing right now? If you just breathe in, is there anything you need in this absolute present moment? These present moments are complete unto themselves. And the more that we can stay in the present moment, the more that we can end the suffering that we feel in our lives. And I mean suffering in the context that the Buddhists use it as any thing that takes us out of that present moment is considered suffering. And so wanting something is a form of suffering. Feeling like something's been done to me is a form of suffering. Wishing something would have been a little bit different than it was is a form of suffering. And all of those take place either in the past or the future. But here's the kicker. There is nothing but this present moment. The past and the future are illusions of time, as Eckhart Tolle says. They're illusions of time. Because we think of time as this linear thing. This was when I was born. This is present tense right now. This is what's going to happen in the future. And I think of time along this linear continuity. But time is actually vertical. It's that razor's edge. It's that particular moment. Time is only this breath. Time is only this instant. But we think of it as this long thing, and we spend most of our life dwelling on what's on this side of us instead of what's right here in the middle, in this present moment. And that takes us out of the enjoyment of our lives. That takes us out of being at peace. That takes us out of feeling that joy. And as we spend all of our time in these areas here, then we're contributing to that suffering not only of ourselves, but the suffering of the world. If we look at what's happening in the Middle East right now, that's centuries old. That's from anger and resentment and distrust and wrongdoings and everything that has happened over the last probably 5,000 years. Certainly the last couple thousand years. If we look at what's happening in the Ukraine right now, there's one country that wants to take the resources of another country because what are they doing? They're thinking about the future. They're not as concerned with what's happening in the present moment because I don't think they could do what they're doing if they were thinking about the people that they're doing it to. Because they're worried about the future. You know, all of the world's conflicts are caused by something that's either happened in the past or something that's going to happen in the future. Now imagine if we could, on a global level, on a global scale, stay in that present moment. Some of you may have read Lynn McTaggart's work, The Power of Intention. She's a scientist and does scientific experiments with hundreds of thousands of people who stay in the present moment. One of these experiments she was doing, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was over 200,000 people, were engaged in prayer over a conflict that was happening in the Indonesian area of the world. And they were able, for that, I think they were in prayer for a couple of hours, meditation, prayer and meditation, just staying, keeping themselves in that present moment. And the battle that was scheduled to happen did not happen. Because this preponderance of people staying in the present moment brought the presence of the divine to the situation. And the struggle and the conflict and the problems that existed didn't feel as urgent or as strong. And so the people that were involved in the conflict just didn't fight. This was in the last 10 years that this happened. Can you imagine if we could do this constantly on a global level? When I was in Mexico last year, I made the acquaintance of a man named James Twyman, who is a prolific author and a musician. He calls himself the Peace Troubadour. And during the earlier conflicts in the Middle East, Saddam Hussein invited him to come to the country and do a peace concert. And as he did that, he went there with several other performers, and they had this long concert of bringing that idea of peace into the world. And the conflicts in that area dissipated for a prolonged period of time. The urgency to fight wasn't there anymore because the people were able to bring the presence of the divine into that moment. Now, it is only sustainable when we can sustain being in the present moment ourselves. But it's so tempting to let our minds drift away to the past or the future, to the issues that are around us, solving all of those things around us. Being out of the present moment is the origin of all of our fear. And so when we are confronted with a situation where we are afraid, especially if it's in relationship to other people, our fears are based on something that's happened in the past or something that we think might happen in the future. They're not based on what's happening in the now. And so our opportunity is always to bring things back to the present moment. If I'm engaging with someone and I think I'm going to be afraid in that situation, well, guess what? I am afraid. I come to that person and I think of all these things all these preconceived ideas I might have, or all of this worry and fear of what could possibly happen. Where right there in that present moment, there is no conflict. It's just okay. And as we spend more time in that present moment, we have an opportunity to bring the presence of the divine into it more and more often. And so always our opportunity is to go back to the present moment. And there are lots of ways that we can do this. I don't know if anybody else has ever done this in their life, but I'm one of these people that my mind will start going. Like I'll start reliving a situation and I'm like saying out loud what I thought I should have said in that moment and didn't say, but whatever. Or I'm going to go to do something and I've got a little bit of anxiety about it, and so I start rehearsing what I'm going to be saying as I go into it. I've done this all my life. My mother used to laugh at me because she'd see me driving up in front of the house and I'm chattering away to myself in the car because that was kind of the nature of it. And then I came here and I started learning things like meditation and some of these ideas and principles and things like that. And so I started catching myself. And it took a long time for me to stop that practice. It very seldom comes up anymore. And I have a really quick way of catching myself. Once I have that realization, oh, you're doing that again, I just say to myself, Laura, you don't do that anymore. And I stop it. But it caught me right back to the present moment. It stopped all of that nonsense that was going on that's making me all anxious and stressed out and so forth. and bringing me right back to the present moment. Things like the songs that David sang here can bring us right back to that present moment. When we feel that presence overwhelm us, and I don't know about you, but I got chills while he was singing because I felt that presence. I felt the power of those words coming into my body. And our body is a wonderful way of recognizing that we are in the present moment or not in the present moment. If you ever had to do something and you got that stuff going on in here and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to have to do? I don't know about anybody else, but my guts get rumbling when I get anxious. You know, my body is telling me there's a stressful situation that I'm anticipating might happen. And generally the stress, acts up then. So if I can catch that, if I can catch the beginnings of that feeling, I can think, okay, what do I need in this moment that I don't have? What do I need in this moment as I'm walking into this situation that isn't already fully present within me? And generally, if it's with somebody else, I just say to myself, God is the only person in the room. And that reminds me to bring that presence of the divine right with me as I walk into the room to whatever conflict situation I might have to deal with or whatever it was that caused that stomach stuff to happen. It allows me to get to a place where I don't have to spend all of my time worrying. I don't have to be anxious about things that are happening, that have already happened, or anxious about what's going to happen. I can actually bring myself back fully present into this moment. Eckhart Tolle goes on to say that we can actually heal our diseases by staying in the present moment. Because again, so much of what we think about disease is, how bad is this going to get? How much worse will it be for me to have this illness happen? And I believe that a lot of our illnesses are helped along by things that have happened in the past that we didn't deal with in the now moment. I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was telling my family about it, I said to them, I know that cancer grows in an environment that is closed off. When I close off things, when I take things inside and I keep them in me and I don't let them out, that gives cancer a place to operate in my body. So I'm not going to do that anymore. And I don't anymore. When situations come up, I speak about them. I don't let them find a place to live in my body. And I think we can really begin to heal a lot of our physical issues that we have in our body when we do that, when we can release the inflammation that is caused by holding in these feelings of stress and guilt and anxiety and tension and worry and all of the things that we've felt because we're working in the past and the future. Our body is holding them in for us. And if we can release those, I believe that we can heal a lot of our own physical conditions that we have in our bodies. We've already proven scientifically that being in the present moment can affect the world around us. Imagine what it can do to our internal life as well, and the life that's in this body that we're inhabiting here. So as I said, we have this voice inside of us. For me, it was a voice that actually came out, but a lot of us just have the voice going on in our heads. I love the way Michael Singer describes this in his book, The Untethered Soul. He calls it the inner roommate that needs to be evicted. We have this chattering mind, and it's actually kind of the way our minds are designed to operate to keep us safe, because we have this idea that of remembering things that have happened in the past again, and worrying about things that are going to happen in the future, And so the mind is like constantly trying to predict all that and control all that and keep all that in going. And so it's constantly yakking at us, and talking all the time. But if we can begin to become aware of it, when we hear that chattering mind, stop it in its tracks. That is one of the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness I love because mindfulness is about three things. It's about being fully aware of what's happening in the moment, being totally in the moment, being fully aware, and then the last thing about mindfulness is don't react to it. It's what the Buddhists call equanimity, balance. It is what it is. We hear it, we realize it's happening, but we don't have to react to it in any moment whatsoever. So the more that we can keep ourselves in that state of mindfulness, and we do this through practicing it and developing those times. Remember, true meditation only happens in brief seconds. But if we can begin to expand those seconds out, we'll get a longer period of that equanimity, that peace. Eckhart Tolle has a little experiment that he does here. Let me see if he says, close your eyes and say to yourself, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. And then become very alert and wait for the next thought. Be like a cat watching a mouse hole. What thought is going to come out of the mouse hole? Let's try it now. Say to yourself, I wonder what thought is going to come next, and watch for it. Did anybody catch a thought? If you were staying on that, I wonder what's going to happen next, and you were just waiting for it and stayed in that anticipation of it, it was probably a while before anything came up. Because we were fully present in the moment. There's a story that goes around about people that are learning meditation in the Buddhist tradition, monks and so forth. And it is said that oftentimes the master will come up behind a student and hit them with a stick to see where they are in their mindfulness. Now, if they are totally present in the now moment, they're going to know that the master is behind them with that stick, and they're going to move out of the way. The ones whose minds have drifted off either into the past or the future are the ones who get hit. Because their mind is going somewhere else. They're not present with what's happening right now. I'm glad I'm not doing Buddhist traditions, because, I'd probably be hit a lot, quite honestly, because my mind has a tendency to go that way. So, it's not a punishment for sure, but it's about bringing the awareness to it. Okay, I got hit because I wasn't fully present. I was dwelling on something else. My mind was occupied with something else besides staying in the present moment. Because in the present moment, in that state of mindfulness, we are fully aware. Fully aware of what's happening. And our intention is to open up that space of awareness within us to allow us to have that experience of the divine in whatever way it happens. In a ministerial school, they called it a numinous experience, an experience of God. They're powerful, they're life-changing, but they can only happen in the now. And so our trick for life, for leading this life that is more expansive and open, is to keep ourselves in the present moment as much as possible. Bringing ourselves back to it whenever we find our mind drifting away to the past or worrying about the future. Redirect, redirect, redirect. It's kind of what I'm doing with my puppy right now. Redirect, redirect, redirect. Hers is usually with a treat or a toy, but it's still working out. It's constantly bringing it back to the behavior that I want to experience. And so as I do that more and more often in my life, I will have a greater experience of the divine. I will have a greater experience of my life, and I know it'll be a greater experience for the world. I know that we can heal conflict in the world. I know that we can heal illness within our bodies. I have seen it happen. I have felt it happen. I know it is possible. But it is only possible in the now. Let's take this into prayer. So take in a breath and just let it out. Bringing ourselves fully present into this moment, into this perfect now. Knowing that right here, right now, everything is perfect and complete. That the presence of the divine is fully manifesting itself in, through, and as each one of us. That this creative power, this love intelligence, is manifesting itself as peace, as love, as harmony. I know that this incredible intelligence permeates all life, providing all answers that are necessary for every single situation. And because I know that there is only this one, I know that I am one with it. That the power and the presence of the divine has immersed itself in my being and is living itself through me right here and right now. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for everyone. For we are all that place where God shows up. I know that the place on which we stand, no matter where it is holy ground. Because we have brought the holy to it. We are that place where the sacred is flowing through into expression. And I see it happening in my life. I see it happening in the lives of the people around me. And I know it is happening in the world. I know that there is a preponderance of souls who are dedicated to bringing that presence of peace. And I see it reaching out into all the troubled areas of the world, like a flood permeating the soil, creating an environment where joy is possible, where peace is possible, where understanding and forgiveness are operating through the lives of everyone involved. I feel this, I know this, and I know it is happening right here and right now. And how good it is to know it, how good it is to see it in operation, and how good it is to know that it is continually unfolding itself in form around our planet. And so I release this word into that creative intelligence, that loving kindness, that knows no lack or limitation, and that is always unfolding itself for the betterment of all. I release it and I let it go. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.